Good afternoon, and thanks for clicking on to the very first edition of the European Outlook for August. It's the 1st of August, and it is Thursday, and this is the CDAS 0.5 data for the month of June. So it was below average across the west of Europe, central and eastern areas above average. And then as we go into the month of July, it has been quite the same story across the majority of the UK and Ireland, likely ended up just slightly below average, I think, for the UK as a whole. So we'll await the Met Office stats over the next couple of days as they come in. Notice here Iberia was slightly warmer compared to the month of June. And the upcoming 5 days is looking like this off the GFS ensemble. So a deep area of low pressure anchored just to the south of Iceland. We've got an area of higher pressure down over Iberia into France here. So we've got this fight between low pressure to the north and high pressure to the south. Looking at the precipitation, we are going to be expecting over the next week a slightly wetter across the north and drier across east and south of the UK here. Temperature-wise here for the next 5 days is looking like this here. So you can see we are actually slightly above average according to the GFS ensemble, especially east and southern areas of the British Isles here, where we will see temperatures close, if not slightly above average, but closer to the area of low pressure, we are going to see slightly below average conditions across the northwest. So this is the current cloud view over Europe, and we've got quite a lot of convection over parts of France once again, around the Paris area affecting the Olympics. We also have an area of low pressure actually that is moving out of the east of France, parts of eastern Belgium, moving into parts of Germany here. You can see this kind of widespread cloud cover here associated with that. And then we've also got in the southern flank where you've got hot, humid air. We've got a blow up of quite deep convection here to the south. We also have some interesting goings on over the British Isles here. We've got convergent winds as a frontal system. You can see here off this surface chart here off the Met Office, there's that frontal system associated. We've got a couple of embedded features within the mid levels of the atmosphere. That's increasing the lapse rate. Lapse rate being the difference in temperature, the cooling with height. And when you've got a greater lapse rate, you've got essentially a greater contrast between surface, mid levels, and upper levels of the atmosphere. And when you cool the mid and upper levels, especially associated with a frontal system, that then allows and attracts the air to rush up from warm to cold, and therefore we see this blow up of convection, thunderstorms, very significant amounts of rain within a couple of hours, providing flash flooding. We've seen parts of central areas of England recording, a significant 2 inches of rain within an hour or two. And the reason for that is the dynamics and the level of instability within the atmosphere. And we've also got quite high CAPE values, which is a cumulative available potential energy. And when you've got high cumulative available potential energy, you have the dynamics in place to provide some very, very turbulent weather. And you see those kind of torn cumulonimbus clouds that rise into the cold upper levels of the atmosphere and can dump a lot of rain, hail, lightning, thunderstorms, gusty winds, you name it. The atmosphere will produce it when the dynamics are right. And you can see here, this is the current lightning activity over Europe. So there is some thunderstorms widespread across Paris and to the south and southeast of Paris, into parts of Central Europe here. There's Germany. We've got a lot of convection over the Southern Alps, Northern Italy, etc., etc. And then as we look towards the UK here, we've got some very lively downpours and thunderstorm activity stretching from the South Midlands all the way down into south central portions of England. So quite a lot of activity going on at the moment, and it's all thanks to a frontal system that is crossing the UK. One of a series of fronts, may I add, that will affect the British Isles over the next few days, and eventually the air will get cleaned out. So you can see here, temperature still knocking on the door of 30 Celsius this afternoon, 1st of August now, and we've still got the low 20s across central and southern Scotland. Even across the north, we've got 22 Celsius. I think probably the warmest day of the year at Tain Range, for example. We've got a 22 at Inverness Dalcross, 21 at Aberdeen Dice, a little bit warmer at 22.3 at Aboyne here. And then obviously the further south you go, the warmer it is. We've got 25.7 at Churchtown in Dublin. So quite a hot day actually compared to what we've seen this summer so far. So looking at the next few days here, we are going to see an increase of frontal systems moving in, cleaning the atmosphere out, but we're also going to see some fairly strong winds associated with this. This is ECMWF peak wind gust, and you can see the area of low pressure containing some fairly strong winds here out of the south and southwest on the south and southeastern flank of the centre. That low pressure is into the 970s and millibars, so quite a deep feature. But thankfully, the feature itself stays enough to the west that we don't get anything particularly significant. But notice here, as we move into the day tomorrow, we are going to see some fairly gusty winds coming in from a west or southwesterly direction across the majority of the UK, but primarily west and northern areas is going to see some fairly gusty conditions associated with that. And then as we move through the course of the weekend and into next week, we've got areas of low pressure that is going to send frontal systems in across the country, bringing in something a little bit fresher. Also quite an unsettled look to next week. As we continue to play through, you can see here these areas of low pressure, one after the another, staying to the north. Always drier and warmer the further south across the UK you go, and that has been the mainstay of the August forecast. Low pressure to the north, higher pressure to the south, warmer, drier to the south, and cooler, more unsettled, and more changeable the further north and west you go over the course of the month. That is the ideas that I'm sticking by. June and July has played out pretty well, if you ask me, and there is a hot spell potential, I think, during the second half of August, based on all the things that I have taken into consideration, including the tropics. Speaking of the tropics, the MJO is now moving through 6, into 7, into 8, into 1. That then means that we are likely, not guaranteed, but we are likely to start to see the Atlantic waking back up as the MJO rotates into the Americas and the Atlantic Basin here. And then that is going to caveat what takes place up here across the northwest of the continent here. We do have a tropical system that is expected to develop, move towards Florida. Some of the models did have it going up to the north and recurving around the Bermuda High, even making an approach at the UK, likely deepening the trough that's between Iceland and the UK. But there is the other models now, and including the ECMWF, that's now taking that into the Gulf of Mexico, so a slightly different overall scenario. But if you look back here at this is the GFS average simulated IR brightness temperature here. So essentially this is quite a nice way of looking at the movement of the atmosphere here. And you can see as we play through this little loop, the area of high pressure essentially is anchored here near the Azores and Iberia. And what's essentially happening is we've got the jet, reasonably strong for the time of the year, by the way, that is going to send areas of low pressure around the periphery of this mid-Atlantic ridge of high pressure. And you can see here essentially what takes place. We'll see the essential movement of the atmosphere over the top of that high. You notice here there's that tropical feature seen by the models moving into the Gulf of Mexico here. That originally was expected to go around the Bermuda High and catch the westerlies towards the UK. That doesn't look to be the case now. But you notice here that it's going to be quite interesting to see what takes place going forward. But we've got plenty of systems, one after the other, going to be moving into the UK. We're going to have bumps in between those features, allowing warmer, sunnier conditions to build in from the south. But generally speaking, we've got a fairly mobile, fairly Atlantic-driven pattern going forward here. Looking back at the 500 millibar 5-day averages here, you can see into the 6 to 10 day period, there's that trough to the north, high to the south, very westerly flow. Looking at the temperature anomalies here for that same time frame, this takes us out to the 11th of August, and you've got a cool north, warmer southeast. So that's it for today, short and sweet. Like, share, and subscribe. I do greatly appreciate everybody's support and views at this time. I will have plenty of other interesting content coming up towards the end of this week and the weekend. So stay tuned for that. Bye for now.